as I read this, put it in a context for you. Help us get a grasp of how beneficial this psalm is for us in our lives, how crucial it was for David to have come to the point that he came to, displayed in the psalm. It says, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, who addressed the words of this song to the Lord on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. So, David was not yet king. That's important to keep in mind what he is going through at this point when he sees what God's doing. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I'm saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of destruction assailed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord. To my God I cried for help. And from his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. Then the earth reeled and rocked. The foundations also of the mountains trembled and quaked because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew. He came swiftly on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, his canopy. Around him, thick clouds, dark with water. Out of the brightness before him, hailstones and coals of fire broke through his clouds. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the Most High uttered his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. And he sent out his arrows and scattered them. He flashed forth lightnings and routed them. Then the channels of the sea were seen. The foundations of the world were laid bare. At your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils, he sent from on high. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. He rescued me from my strong enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me. He delighted in me. The Lord dealt with me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands he rewarded me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his rules were before me. The statutes I did not put away from me. I was blameless before him, and I kept myself from my guilt. So the Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands in his sight. With the merciful you show yourself merciful. With the blameless man you show yourself blameless. With the purified you show yourself pure. And with the crook you make yourself seem torturous. For you save a humble people, but the haughty eyes you bring down. For it is you who light my lamp. The Lord my God lightens my darkness. For by you I can run against a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. This God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He's a shield for all those who take refuge in him. For who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? The God who equipped me with strength and made my way blameless. He made my feet like the feet of a deer and set me secure on the heights. He trains my hands for war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and your right hand supported me. Your gentleness made me great. You gave a wide place for my steps under me, and my feet did not slip. I pursued my enemies and overtook them, and did not turn back till they were consumed. I thrust them through so that they were not able to rise. They fell under my feet. For you equipped me with strength for battle, and made those who rise against me sink under me. You made my enemies turn their backs to me, and those who hated me I destroyed. They cried for help, but there was none to save. They cried to the Lord, but he did not answer them. I beat them fine as dust before the wind. I cast them out like the mire of the streets. You delivered me from strife with the people. You made me the head of the nations. People whom I had not known served me. As soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Foreigners came cringing to me. Foreigners lost heart and came trembling out of their fortresses. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God of my salvation. The God who gave me vengeance and subdued peoples under me, who rescued me from my enemies. Yes, you exalted me above those who rose against me. You delivered me from the man of violence. For this I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations, and sing to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king, and shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David and his offspring forever. Father, may we not only agree with David, but never cease to forget through the various paths that you may take us in this life, that your way is perfect. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Particularly if you are a young person tonight, which I would put in the category of somewhere under 95. Really for all of us, because God's not finished with any of us yet. But particularly young people, as you look ahead to your life, where do you hope to be one day? Where do you think you may settle at some point? You've got plans, you've got ideas, you've got ambitions, and often that sort of thing changes, When I grow up, I want to, and then you try it when you're 3 and find out that you can't be Superman, that Tonka trucks are made of metal, and they do great damage to the back of your noggin. You change your ideas, of course, throughout the time of life. David is young. This is after he had taken on Goliath. He had been called to the court of Saul. And so if you step into where David is at this point, he had been a shepherd, caring for his father's sheep. He's enduring some enormous and crazy stuff, but understand what's happened already. He's been anointed to be the next king. So he's got his sights on the palace, and in fact, he resided there for a period of time. To play music, to quiet the soul of King Saul. And during that time, not only was King Saul chasing him down and wanting to take him out, but he was a leader of Saul's army, and he was on the front lines of the battles. You think there were times that he wondered if he would ever sit on the throne and call the shots? He had his sights set there. He knew he was anointed. He knew God had a plan for him, but would it ever take place? Perhaps you know where you'd like to be, or think you know where you'd like to be. You may even have a plan how you hope to get there. And it's good. It's good to have goals. It's good to have a plan. It's good to set a focus on a destination. Just know this: God delights in altering our plans and our destinations. I should be very careful because he may watch the video at some point. I have a brother that in my younger days I thought was really, really just off the wall. A beautiful summer day, and he wanted to sit in his room and read a book. Craziest guy on earth. All the things that you could do outside: rocks to throw, trees to climb, stuff to do, ride your bike, you name it. Smash a baseball as hard as you could. There were lots of things, anything outside, but he wanted to read. God has a sense of humor. And I spend a great deal of time with my face in a book. That's not where I had a good idea of where God was wanting me to go. I was initially hoping he had a backup plan that I could choose. God likes to alter our plans. He likes to take us on a different course. He takes us through things that we would never choose. And even if you're past college age and you're not quite 95, there are still areas that God will take you through that you wouldn't choose. In fact, at the time, we don't even find them reasonable until, by His grace, we begin to see His plan unfold. We see the opportunities to be used by Him that, apart from His diversion, apart from His choice of path, not ours, we would not be prepared to accomplish. David, after a warm reception at the palace, became the arch enemy of King Saul. He was also the key enemy of those who fought against Israel, because David was gaining a reputation. And not only was Saul jealous of that didn't help the situation, but you have a target on you when you have a reputation like David as the unbeatable warrior in battle. He went from a palace dweller to a cave dweller, and over the years fleeing for his life. And as he describes in one point here, the enemy that was too mighty for me. He says, He rescued me from strong enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. God delivered him from those that were bigger than he was. He came to know the loyalty of many. He came to know the faithfulness of God. He came to see the reward of diligence and received the training that God intended for him. I had a conversation with someone not that long ago that was kind of frustrated. They saw God compelling them into an area of ministry, and everything seems to be in limbo right now. And they're like, what's going on? I said, well, just remember, Moses spent 40 years being educated in Egypt, and 40 years with a bunch of smelly sheep in the wilderness before he dealt with 40 years of ordinary people in the wilderness. God prepared him for the task that he had chosen for him. This is one of those Psalms that you will turn to over and over and over again. It's one of those Psalms, maybe sections of it, portions of it, maybe the whole thing as we read through tonight, but you will turn to it again and again. And rather than hone in on one specific aspect tonight, I want to give you a framework of this psalm so that as you read over it time and time and time again, you can kind of see what is going on with David here. David was anointed to be king and perhaps wondered if that day would ever come, or if the enemy would kill him first, or if Saul would get to him. On the day God delivered him from Saul and from his enemies, on one particular day, he sang this song, part of which is most certainly a song of prayerful worship. And he ends with that specific. So here's a framework of this, kind of an outline of this psalm as you read through it time and time again along the journey of life. Verses 1 and 2, he expresses devotion to God. That's the primary starting place. Expresses devotion to God. The word translated love here, I love you, O Lord, is often translated compassion, and it's the only time the verb is used of a human love of God. This was moving and deeply rooted within David, and he's expressing that in an incredibly powerful manner. Verses 3 through 6 is a prayer expressing the true crisis of the situation. It's not wrong. In fact, it's helpful to honestly assess the situation where you're at. It's not admitting defeat or failure to say, God, I can't do this. I can't make it. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what to do. He was ensnared by death itself. Look at the graphic nature of this. The cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of destruction assailed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. Snares of death confronted me. In other words, if that's not clear enough, death was all around him. Everywhere he looked, he was staring death in the face. And in the midst of it, look at verse 6. I called upon the Lord. In the midst of it, he continued to cry out to God for help. We must do that. We must do that. Verses 7 through 19, a little larger section. Here he describes the awesome power of God. This is vivid. The imagery here is powerful. The earth reeled and rocked. The foundations also of the mountains trembled. There's some big mountains out there. What would you do if you just saw them shaking in the distance? That make you want to turn and run? Unless you knew God was the one doing that. He describes the power of God. He bent the heavens. He came down. And for what purpose? You look through this section at the graphic nature of the display of the power of God. And as he comes down and he takes care of business, he does it in order to rescue David. He sent out his arrows, he scattered them, he flashed forth lightnings and routed them. What's God doing? He came down and he displays his mighty power and he takes on the enemy and he delivers David from that and he sets him in a safe place. God may lead us through a path we would not wish. most of us have had some difficult times that were not to our choosing. But if we look back, we can most definitely say that He has carried us through. And we know that He will continue to be faithful. It's important for us to know that. It's important for us to know that. Some of the things that we encounter in life are necessary to test our faith, to strengthen us, to give us some resolve. If you are a sports team and you don't ever play any serious competition, you're going to get weak. You're not going to learn all the skills that you can learn. He carries us through. And here's the most foundational aspect. He knows what He's doing. Middle of the night, I was riding with a trooper this week and headed to an event that was pretty wild. He was moving quite quickly, and it was some rural dirt roads. And number one, my night vision isn't that great, and number two, I was not familiar with the road. Thankfully, he was not inhibited by either of those. And there was a very sharp turn that it's a rural road. Why would you be going 95 on a dirt road like that? Why would they need a sign that says there's a sharp turn? You know? Nobody's going to be going that fast that needs that. He navigated the corner and I looked back, I said, I think that was built to eliminate some drunks. Just flying along there and they can't navigate the corner and they would just go flying into this swamp, you know? And just reflecting on this throughout the week and thinking, you know, he knew where he was going. I didn't. I could hear the chatter on the radio. I had an idea of the incident. I kind of knew what was going on. At that point, because we were moving in carefully to set up, he had already blacked out the vehicle, so there was everything's dark. I couldn't read the screen, couldn't see the address. He knew where he was going and what was happening, and so I trusted him. He knew where he was going. God knows where He wants to take us. He knows the plans that He has for us. He knows what we truly need to better serve Him. One of the most interesting things in sports is when the coach makes the team just run laps, do all of this silly stuff that does nothing but tire you out. Until you get out on the field or on the court, and it's an aggressive game, and you have the endurance to outdo the enemy. I mean the competition. You take sports seriously, right? God knows what we need to be prepared for. He knows what's around the corner. He knows what's coming. And notice verse 19 that the English translation loses a portion of this. It just says, He brought me into a broad place. He rescued me. The picture here is He extricated me. David is saying he was in a fight for his life and he was pinned in. He was unable to remove himself from this dangerous situation that in his eyes was most certainly going to end in a fatality. It threatened his life, he was certain of it, but God got him out of there. God rescued him. That's what God does. Verses 20 to 29, David acknowledges that though God did this, he did it in order to reward David. Notice, he dealt with me according to my righteousness. He didn't have to. He did. He did it in order to reward David to the extent that David remained faithful, that David was walking in righteousness. Notice, I've kept my ways, kept the ways of the Lord, and have not wickedly departed from my God. All his rules were before me, and his statutes I did not put away from me. I was blameless before him, and I kept myself from my guilt. There are aspects of our life that God is responsible for. The impact that you will make, the size of the crowd that you may affect at one point or another in your life. God can take care of that. If he wants you to just impact a handful of people or thousands, that's his business to worry about. Our responsibility is to be concerned with the kind of influence when God gives us the opportunity. David kept his way pure before the Lord. He sought to walk in obedience and righteousness. He turned from wickedness. And to the extent that he remained faithful, God demonstrated faithfulness and rewarded him and continued to work in David's life. Verse 30. There are many sharp turns in your life. Speed bumps, detours. You can name them various routes. Maybe it's what appears to be the off-road course. This God, his way is perfect. Why am I here? Why is this happening? What are you allowing me to endure, God? His way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. So crucial for us in life to have that foundation. It may seem like an unnecessary and difficult detour, but his plan is perfect. In this process, in this struggle, in this fight for his life that David had been enduring, he had been trained for war. Notice clearly, and I know there are some whose this is one of their favorite verses. He trains my hands for war, so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. If you haven't pulled a heavy draw on a bow, you should try it sometime. And think, there's no way I could ever draw that much weight, or hold it. Well, deer decides to move just a little bit. But no, you work at it over and over and over. And maybe you end up doing what seems like senseless work to build the muscles to make it possible to be able to do those sorts of things. David says, not only that, but I learned how to run fast. There's a benefit to that. There are a number of people in this life that there's not much chance that I could beat them in a fight, but I could likely outrun them. That would be a good benefit. He made my feet like the feet of a deer and set me secure on the heights. trains my hands for war, so my hands can bend a bow of brass. He gives me the strength I need. He gives me the training I need. God takes us through things to prepare us, to equip us for what He has planned for us in life. And David acknowledges this. He acknowledges that God's way is perfect, that God has been teaching him along the way. He doesn't say, yes, I got a certificate now. I've learned everything I need to learn. No, there's another bend coming. God has more to teach us because we're still breathing. He's not done with us. He has more for us to do. But here's the beauty of it. Verses 35 to 45. And this is no surprise whatsoever. The result is victory. To be able to look back over the years and see the faithfulness of God. To see how God prepared you, how God strengthened you, how He rescued you, how He carried you through, how He enabled you to be able to take on more than you thought you could handle. To prepare you for things you never thought you could do. Give me the shield of your salvation. Your right hand supported me. I pursued the enemies, and what happened? Verse 37. I overtook them. No surprise here. God is victorious. Notice what he says. They fell under my feet. Why? Because you equipped me with strength for the battle. God, you enabled me to be able to celebrate this victory. You made my enemies turn their backs. God brought about the victory in David's life, and he recognized that very, very clearly. In the process, he trained David. He equipped him with power and strength, made him be able to run, and taught him and prepared him. But then through all of it, as it unfolds, he gives the victory, a certain victory. There is no God like Yahweh. There is none. There's no competition. There's no one that can hinder his plans. Victory is certain. It's not even in question. And in the end, David gets to share this victory for all that God had prepared him to do and enabled him to do. He gives the victory. God wins. And he took David with him. David gets to see his enemies fall. He gets to see the victory. In fact, he gets to see one precious victory after another after another. God brought it about that allows David to share the celebration. The old song from the 80s, surrounded by his love, guarded by his power, we are destined to win. Verses 46 to 50 is an expression of devotion and worship, and I would say it reads off the page like a doxology. David is seeing life come together. He's seeing God's plan. He knows that God has more. He doesn't know what that is, but he knows that God has brought him to where he is, that God has enabled the victory, that God has spared his life, that God is continuing to show faithfulness. The Lord lives. Yahweh lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God of my salvation. The transcendent God who grants me full requital, subduing peoples under me, writes one. a loose translation of the text. This transcendent God who grants me full requital, subduing peoples, rescuing me from my enemies. You lifted me high from those who rose up against me. They rose up high against me, and you lifted me higher and spared me. From the man of violence you deliver me. Therefore, I will give you thanks among all the peoples, and to your name I will make music. God, who alone magnifies full deliverance and demonstrates his steadfast love to his anointed, he keeps his promise forever. Great salvation he brings to his king and shows steadfast love to his anointed. He grants David a victory in battle, so the king that he still respected as God's anointed, King Saul, is given a great salvation from the enemy, and at the same time God shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David, to his offspring forever. God will bring victory. His plans will succeed. He will deliver his servants through whatever circumstance he determines necessary to accomplish his purpose in our lives. May not always go the way we would choose, but his way is perfect. His way is perfect. Would you stand with me as we close tonight in prayer? Lord, thank you that we can trust you. Even when we don't know what's around the corner, we don't know where the detour is going to take us. We don't know why we're having to go through the rigors of the current time, because we don't always know the full extent of what you're preparing us for. But we know you have a plan, you have a purpose, and you will fulfill that purpose. You will give us the length of life and breath necessary to accomplish what you intend for us to accomplish. Help us to trust you each step of the way, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.